Life. So good to see you today. My name is Jonathan.
And I'm Jenny, and we're going to be your host today.
Can you believe it? It is the final Sunday of 2020.
Amen.
Yeah, type amen in the chat if you agree that we've almost made it through 2020. But today is going to be a great day.
Absolutely. All year long, we've been saying, even though there are things that are shut down and things look different than they usually do, that you can't stop the church. You can't shut down what God's doing because the church is not a building, the church is people.
Yeah, and I love what Jesus said. He said, I will build my church. It's His church, it's people becoming the church, and today we're going to celebrate that.
Yeah, absolutely. All year we've been saying it. Today we want to show you. So you're going to experience some stories of what Jesus has been up to in the lives of new lifers. We're going to celebrate together all that God's done this year.
Yeah, so here comes some great music in the first two stories.
Where are you now when darkness seems to win? Where are you now when the world is crumbling? Oh, I hear you say, look up, child. Hey, look up, child. Hey, where are you now when all I feel is doubt? Oh, where are you now when I can't figure it out? Oh, I hear you say, look up, child. Hey, look up, child. Hey, look up, child. Hey, look up, child. Hey, you're not threatened by the war, you're not shaken by the storm. I know you're in control. Even in our suffering, even when it can't be seen, I know you're in control. Oh, I hear you say, look up, child. Hey, look up, child. Hey, look up, child. Hey, look up, child. Hey. Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare Him room. And heaven and nature sing. And heaven and nature sing. And heaven and nature sing. Look up, child. Hey, 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 look up.
Hi, New Life. Man, like many of you, this season has been, whatever normal was, it doesn't exist, or at least it looks different now. My wife and I, 4 days before the first quarantine happened in March, we actually had our first child, a daughter, together on March 10th. And we checked into the hospital and the world looked one way, and then when we left, the world was completely different. And like you, we've been really looking at man, what are the rhythms of life that we actually want to lean into? It feels like COVID had pushed a big reset button and given some time and space to really say, man, what is that relationship with Jesus, relationship with each other that we've always dreamed of having? So we jumped into something at New Life Launch called Jesus Experience, or Jesus XP. And it's been so fun to hear stories of New Lifers who aren't just gaining head knowledge about Jesus, but actually putting it into practice. It's not just knowledge in, but it's actually action out. And we've heard stories of New Lifers reading about Jesus saying to forgive people and then calling up their family or friends and forgiving them or asking for forgiveness. We've heard stories of New Lifers reading about Jesus' challenge to be generous, to give him their entire life and leaning into that. And it's not just been knowledge in, but action out constantly. And a while ago, I heard a story of a New Lifer who was reading the stories of Jesus, and Jesus told a story of a wedding and a king inviting all these people and no one showing up, everyone making excuses. And the king commands in the story his messengers. He says, go out and invite everyone. Go into the streets and invite the people there. Go into the countryside and invite them. It goes from inviting this maybe royal group to a ragtag group of people and saying the invite is going out to everyone. And these people are now honored guests. And this New Lifer is reading this story and says, man, what does that look like in my life? And they had a celebration coming up that no one could make. And they said they were driving around and saw a homeless person on the side of the road. And this story that Jesus is telling flashes into their mind. And they say, man, what if I invited them into this celebration? And that day was full of driving around, picking up unexpected people, and inviting them over for a celebration and making them the honored guests. And I love that we are able to be challenged by stories of Jesus. And I love that, honestly, nothing can stop the church because the church is people. The church is you when we are activated to go on the mission with Jesus and do incredible things.
Hey, all year long, New Lifers have been meeting needs by providing meals for people that are out of work, that have gone to the hospital, have lost a loved one. And it's made a huge difference in our community. Josh, you've heard of one of those needs.
Yeah, we've got a New Lifer on Bainbridge, and she works with a local organization that helps gals get back on their feet after they've gone through abuse or sex trafficking. And she reached out because one of these gals who's getting her life back on track is in Poulsbo. So she reached out and asked if the Poulsbo location and the Bainbridge location could help out in any way with meals. So we fired up the meal trains, and people rallied and supported these meals so that this gal can move forward in her life. And honestly, this is just one of so many stories of New Lifers all across our network, all across Kitsap, meeting needs. So we really just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
More great stories of what God's been doing this year, both in and through New Lifers. And I love the idea of New Lifers caring for other people in meeting needs.
It's been incredible to watch this year as New Lifers have gone to Outrageous Christmas and met record numbers of needs, more than we've ever done in any other year. In fact, it's been so outrageous to see your generosity. I get to sit on the backside and watch stories of what God is doing in and through you in the lives of other people in our community. It's been amazing.
Yeah, and so we're so close into the year. A ton of needs have already been met, and we're within the reach of ending the year in black, and plus all the outrageous Christmas needs that have been met. So how can people be a part of Giving a New Life?
Yeah, so you can go to newlife.tv/give. That's where you go to give your year-end gift to help New Life end the year in the black. And this year we're really close. New Lifers continue to ask me the question, how are we doing? We're doing really well. We're almost to our goal of 800,000 in the last 2 months of the year. And by reaching that goal, it means we're going to be able to continue to put more effort into online gatherings and in-person gatherings and connecting new lifers through Jesus XP. So when you give, you don't just give to the church, you give through the church to meet needs and connect people in our community.
Yeah, and over the next few months, we'll be sharing stories of how your generosity has made a difference in the lives of people. You know what that does? That brings joy into our lives. When we're generous, we experience joy. Enjoy this next song.
We're singing joy to the hopeless, the hurting, the restless, and joy to the broken, searching for their home. We're singing peace on the earth, goodwill to every man. We're singing joy, joy, joy. A time to remember. God gave us His Son. King in a manger, the star up above. Angels singing. Hope is ringing, the sound of heaven come down, singing joy to the hopeless, the hurting, the restless, joy to the broken, searching for their home. We're singing peace on the earth, goodwill to every man, singing joy, joy, joy. Rejoice, rejoice, hope has come, clothed in peace, wrapped in love. Rejoice, He is here, King of heaven, came to be near. Singing joy to the hopeless, the hurting, the restless, joy to the broken, searching for their home. We're singing peace on the earth, goodwill to every man, singing joy to the hopeless, the hurting, the restless, joy to the broken, searching for their home. We're singing peace on the earth, goodwill to every man, singing joy, joy, joy. Oh, joy.
Hey, my name is Austin. I have the pleasure of leading our students right here in South Kitsap. And I heard someone say this before, that if you look for despair, you'll find it. So look for hope because you'll find it too. I want to share a story with you about a student named Cooper. It's really just a story of hope. And this year he was invited to youth for the first time, came on a Wednesday with his friends and loved it. Later in July, he was invited to an event called Summer Nights. It's an amazing 2-day event where students had a chance to come really in the middle of a pandemic and hear about Jesus. He heard about this God who was so crazy about him, he just wanted a relationship with him. It was that weekend that Cooper gave his life to Jesus. And later on, I texted him and said, hey, would you read the Gospel of Mark? Not long after, he replies and says, hey, I finished it. What's next? It's that kind of hunger and really desire for Jesus that's been a huge inspiration to me and also the guys in his small group on a Wednesday night. I was talking with his dad one night after youth in the parking lot, and he said this: out of all my kids, he's the last one that I thought would be interested in Jesus. God's been changing his life from the inside out, he and his family both. Later this summer, he was baptized Sunday morning at the lake by a small group leader. A beautiful picture. His whole family lining the shore of the lake, cheering him on, many of which don't go to church. Later this summer, a friend close to him was diagnosed with cancer. It's been a really rough go, as you can imagine. His time being spent on things he didn't really expect, going to the pharmacy for him and caring for ways he didn't ever imagine. And all the while, I've seen him lean into Jesus and give his life more and more to him, even when life throws him curveballs. I'm so thankful and so proud of our students, the next wave of leaders. Jesus is up to something huge. And just like my life and yours, God's promises and his words are always true, no matter what this season is. That's Cooper.
2020 brought us so many unexpected things, but so many good things. I'm reminded of Freedom February. New Lifers every single year take an entire month to raise money and awareness to fight against human trafficking. And this year, New Lifers did more than ever. There were so many fundraising events, so many people praying, so many people giving to help set people free. From teenagers doing bake sales to auctions to people donating their tips and everything else you can imagine, more money and awareness was raised than ever before. But it's not only that, it's the impact that money made. We partnered with Rescue Freedom International, and this year there were over 700 girls in Nepal that were rescued or actually saved from human trafficking. Here's what happened. With the money that was raised, every single one of those girls, they got their school books, they got their school uniforms, and they had a caseworker that ensured that they stayed in school. Not only right here in our own communities, but across the world, a difference was made through Freedom February of setting people free from human trafficking. It's one of my favorite stories from our entire year, and the great news is we get to write stories just like this next year, and I'm excited for Freedom February 2021.
Isn't it encouraging to know that there are stories that remind us of the goodness of God and remind us of our mission, that we're not just here for ourselves, that we want to help heal the world, that there is good work to do around the world that Jesus called us to. And I just love that New Lifers like you are committed to that mission.
Yeah, and one of the things we love to do is connect with Jesus, because he is our source, he's our strength, he's the one that gives us the power to even live out this mission. And so we wanted to take the next few moments and just look at a creative way of reflecting on this past year and looking for those moments where Jesus met us. You know, I love the Psalms that says, I look to you, Jesus, to be my refuge. That even when I will still praise the Lord, that I called to you and you answered. And so I hope you take these next few moments to connect with God, to connect in a way that just reminds you that he's still in control, he's still got you, and he still has great things in front of you.
I saw this news article last week, and the headline, it was like 40 photos from 2020, and the headline said the year that was wasted. And I've been thinking about that. And so what I wanted to do with you is I actually thought we could make some art today just around that idea of potentially a year that was wasted. So I'm going to share my screen here. Open up Photoshop. I found a couple photos that I just like this photo. The mountains, the hills there. And one of the passages of scripture that I've been just kind of thinking about and kind of sinking into my soul is in Jeremiah, the prophet Jeremiah. God says to Jeremiah in Jeremiah 1, when he calls Jeremiah, he says to him that he's to remember and to see the branches of the almond tree. And kind of interesting. I mean, I don't have like an almond tree in my yard, you know, like I don't really think about almond trees a lot. I drink almond milk. I do know that my sister, she lives in Monterey, California, in the Salinas area, and there's a lot of almond trees, and that's where our almond milk comes from. But I haven't had a lot of experience with almond trees. But the interesting thing about almond trees is that in Jerusalem, they are one of the first trees to to bloom, to blossom. And so in the very start of the year, around January or February, while there's still kind of the winter air and the frost of the winter season, the almond tree begins to bloom. And God really says to Jeremiah that he's to think about his journey and his life as a prophet as being an almond tree, which is reminding people, and specifically God's chosen people, of the hope that is coming but not here yet, that while there's still winter frost, that the almond tree is blooming. If you look at the photos of an almond tree, they're these beautiful white and pink blossoms, and migrant birds will land in these trees. So you have this image of not only fresh and life and vibrancy, but also the sound of birds in the dead of winter. And just think about that phrase, "a year wasted." And I pulled some of the photos from that article and just kind of like zooming in and looking at the photos of 2020. And some of them, just the pandemic and the social unrest and empty streets and just the chaos that's felt like this year. And my wife and I, we used to have this photo, or it was actually kind of like a phrase up in our living room, and it just said, "the God that wastes nothing." And it had that phrase in Hebrew, and it's something that Hebrew scholars would say, because we actually believe in a God that wastes nothing, and that even in the turmoil of 2020, there is a God who wastes none of it, and that all of it will come together for his good and his glory. And that's what it means as a follower of Jesus. And so I just even look at the story of the Nativity, and the fact that the Nativity wasn't circumventing pain. It didn't go around hardship or trial or lament or sadness or any of it, but it actually it encompassed all of it. And I think it's meaningful for us as followers of Jesus to have that perspective, that the Nativity, that the Christmas season, that Emmanuel, God with us, isn't looking at anything wasted, but it says this, that nothing is wasted. And there is a God who wastes nothing, and that we get to be a part of this beautiful tapestry of all the things in our life, both the good, the challenging, the struggle, and we get to say that there truly is a God who wastes nothing, and that in our pain and even in our struggle, we have the opportunity to have awe and wonder. And wherever you're at in your journey with Jesus, maybe a perspective you have in this season is a perspective of a God who wastes nothing, and a God who, even in the pain and the suffering that is this year, you would have an opportunity to say, where in my life do I see almond trees, a new beginning and new blossoms of what God has been doing all along? And so hopefully this has been an encouraging moment together as we made a little bit of art to say that there is a God of awe and wonder.
Who can fathom all that you've done? Earth, stars, and sun in one breath. Who can fathom the depth of your love, the reach of your mercy? Knows no end. I wanna see your glory, feel your thunder, always filled with awe and wonder. Behold your beauty, all your splendor, always filled with awe and wonder. And what could triumph
so encouraging to stand in awe and wonder of what Jesus is doing in our hearts, in our homes, and in our community. And I'll be honest, 2020, if you're like me, to say the least, it's been a year that's been full of swift transitions. A lot of ups, a lot of downs, but there's one thing that has remained, and that's the faithfulness of God. I woke up a couple mornings ago and that song was on my heart. Great is thy faithfulness. Mercies are new every morning. That's what we get to see. All that we have needed, God, your hand has provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. And the same is true with you. And in this year, we've leaned into three things that has helped us manage the tensions of 2020 and hold on to God's faithfulness. As a church, we said we wanted to find our people, we wanted to grow spiritually, and we want to make a difference. And it's God's faithfulness, his love, and his mercy that prepares us to do that. And we want to do the same for 2021. As a church, we want you finding your people. We want you connected. We want you plugged in. And we want to equip you to find your tribe, because here's the deal. Nobody does the mission alone. Not only that, we want you growing spiritually. We want you to be in a position to where every day you are developing your walk with Christ and walking with Jesus closer and closer every day. I love what Paul says in Colossians chapter 2, verse 7. He says, let your roots grow down deep in him and let your lives be built on him. Then your faith will grow strong in the truth you were taught and you will overflow with thankfulness. What if 2021 was a year that you and I overflowed with thankfulness? And when we do that, we get to make a difference. We want you finding your people, growing spiritually, and make a difference. Real needs being met in practical ways. We get an opportunity throughout our communities to be the hands and feet of Jesus. And what I love about this as we prepare our hearts, the early followers of Jesus, this is what they did that created a movement that you and I are a part of. They found their people, they grew spiritually, and they made a difference. I love what it says in Acts chapter 2, beginning at verse 42. Really speaks to how you and I can prepare our hearts for this upcoming year. It says all the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship and to sharing meals, including the Lord's Supper and to prayer. Right away, they found their people and they began to grow spiritually. Verse 43, a deep sense of awe came over them all, and the apostles performed many miracles, signs, and wonders, and all the believers met together in one place, shared everything they had, sold their property and possessions, and shared the money with those in need. They began to make a difference. They worshiped together at the temple each day, met in homes for the Lord's Supper, shared the meals with great joy and generosity. See how that overflow of thankfulness takes place, all while praising God and enjoying the goodwill of all the people. And each day the Lord added to their fellowship those who were being saved. Those who were walking in darkness, those who were walking in despair, those who needed hope. And that's what we get to be a part of. When we find our people grow spiritually and commit to making a difference, the Lord adds to the fellowship those that need a relationship with him. That's why we have all of these stories of making a difference. That's why we have all of these stories of Jesus transforming hearts and minds, because you're making a difference in our community. Heard a story this past week of new lifers across our movement going to prepare Christmas carols for our seniors. And we shared a need that if they had a flatbed truck, the ones singing on the carols can be up a little higher and see more of the guests as they blessed them with Christmas carols. And a courageous new lifer raised their hand and said, I have a flatbed truck. I'll give it to that team. That's the generosity we get to be a part of. And oh, by the way, something that we always say, if you own a flatbed truck, guess what? We all own a flatbed truck. Not only that, I think about this prayer team that's been assembled across our movement, going a couple Saturdays of the month, praying in the city of Bremerton, going down to the Salvation Army, praying for our community, passing out coffee to those in need. One Saturday, this team met a mom. This mom was struggling, didn't really have a place to stay, struggling with addiction, and didn't even really know that she was pregnant with a child. And so they began to share stories with her and meet her right where she was. And she had a dog, and they petted the dog and did all of these things to show love to this mother. Turns out that they went back the following couple of Saturdays and they couldn't find her. Didn't know what happened, praying that she was okay. Months went by, and then this team actually was dropping off a donation at the Georgia House, which is an organization that comes alongside women and families in our community. They began talking with one of the ladies, and they began to talk about the dog, and they mentioned the dog's name, and they were reminded that that was that mother. They both started crying as this reunion had taken place, and that mom had given birth to a beautiful baby girl. That beautiful baby girl came into the world in some trying times, but she is a light in our community. And that mom decided that she was going to come to church. She's been coming to our in-person gatherings, and through the power of the Holy Spirit, 2 weeks ago, we dedicated that baby back to the Lord. That's what you and I get to be a part of. And oh, by the way, I'm standing here right now because my mom dedicated me to the Lord. And when we have these stories of transformation, it reminds us that even though weeping may endure for a night, joy comes in the morning. Why? Joy is not predicated on any external circumstance, but is predicated on a person, and his name is Jesus. That's why we commit to finding our people. That's why we commit to growing spiritually. That's why we commit to making a difference, because meeting real needs in practical ways builds the goodwill that leads into the good news that you and I get to receive and we get to share. I just believe this, friends. The best days are ahead, but we need to do it together. And together, we're going to see story after story after story of God's faithfulness. I want to pray for this new year, for 2020. This is a moment where I'm getting my heart and my mind ready for what it is God wants to do next. Will you pray with me? Jesus, I thank you for this opportunity. I thank you that your faithfulness is new every morning. Thank you, God, that even all of the things that we may want or what we need, you are there to provide those. And so thank you for being our provider, even in a time, God, where it's trying and where it's hard. And so, God, we just ask that you will prepare our hearts and our minds for where you are leading us next, God. Show us our people. Show us our tribe. Show us the individuals, God, that you are calling us to do life with. And, God, please create those spaces and opportunities for us to grow spiritually, knowing that we can grow in grace and in the knowledge of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And as we grow, God, let our roots grow so deep that we would overflow with thankfulness. And because we are walking in so much thankfulness, we can meet real needs in practical ways and make a difference. And we're believing, God, as we make a difference in your name, you're going to add to the fellowship every day those who are being saved. We thank you and we love you in Jesus' name. Amen.
You know, Jonathan, we have heard some encouraging stories. We've had some moments to reflect on what God's been doing this year. And thanks to Ken, we have our hearts prepared for 2021. We've prayed for the next year. But what about some practical things, ways that we can start to plan for this next year?
Yeah, one of the traditions around New Life is to really pick a word of the year, something to anchor our attention of really what God wants to do in us and through us in this coming year. And it's a word that's anchored in Scripture. And so we have a worksheet we would love to send you. It helps you pick a word and find a Bible verse that goes with that. Even the kids environments, they have that resource as well to be able to do the word of the year. And so all we need is take a second, fill out that Connect card, make sure we have your email address, and we'd love to be able to send you that resource this week.
Yeah, and starting next week right here on New Life Online and at in-person locations, we are going to be kicking off the new year strong. I don't know about you, but I feel like in this moment I could use some fresh air. I could use a fresh start. And so we're going to start a series called Finding Fresh Air, discovering what your soul needs most. We're going to look at 5 ways that Jesus prayed and how if we could figure out how to follow the prayer life of Jesus, it might just change our year.
Yeah, so good to be with you today. We'll see you next Sunday. Have a great week.
Oh, hey guys, I was just on my way to the kids gathering. Do you want to come? It's going to have music, dancing, a great message just for you. Parents, make sure your kids are on here, and let's go.
Po-ro-po-pone people! I'm Jake, and it's that time of the year. I've been jingle belling, decking the halls, and going on all kinds of sleigh rides this season. And you want to know why? Because it's Christmas! Christmas is celebrating Jesus, God's greatest gift. I love this time of the year because everybody's nicer to everybody else and all the decorations, like the Christmas tree. Christmas tree, oh Christmas tree. Oh, and the stockings. I love you stockings and the lights and everything's so beautiful. I love Christmas. Oh yeah, that's right. I gotta check out this big present over here. There's always something cool in this box every time I open it. Look how cool this box is. And there's something cool in it every time I open it. Woo, so excited. Huh? It's empty. Oh man, I know why the box is empty. I just remembered. Christmas is over. Christmas. Can't believe it's over. No more decorations, no more lights, no more people being nice to each other. There's nothing left to celebrate. No, all that's left is to clean up, which is gonna take forever. And then you gotta go through all your gifts and sit down, and some of them require instructions, which means you gotta read, and then some of them have to come with batteries, so then you have to go sit in traffic to go to the mall to pick up some batteries, and that's just gonna be a giant waste of time. And breathe, Jacob. Breathe and smile through it. Or maybe there is something left to celebrate. In today's story, we'll find out what happened after Jesus was born. It's actually really good news. I got some decorations to clean up and a big empty box. Might as well get started. See you soon.
The Bible. It's 66 books of history, stories, letters, and poetry that fit together to form God's one big story. The epic adventure of how He created us and loves us so much that He made a way to rescue us. As we travel through the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, we discover people who met God and found their lives changed forever. Now, for an amazing story, inspired by the book of Luke, chapter 2, verses 8 through 20.
When Jesus was born, there were shepherds living near Bethlehem. These men and boys lived outside, keeping the sheep safe from wind and storms, and protecting them from wild animals. These shepherds were among the least important people you'd meet, living outside and preparing their lentil stew over a campfire.
You put enough salt in there?
I'll add more. Now, we don't know how many shepherds were in the fields when Jesus was born, and we certainly don't know their names. But we'll call two of them Cyrus and Zach.
Don't you ever get bored? I'm bored.
Time moves slower than a snail with a limp out here. You get used to it, youngin'.
I'm hungry.
Yeah, just you keep stirring that stew. It'll be ready soon enough.
Being a shepherd was simple enough.
Keep your eyes open.
For what?
Number 1, wolves. Number 2, thorny brambles. Number 3, ditches and ravines.
That's it?
That's it.
I'm still bored.
At that very moment, the shepherds were nearly blinded by a brilliant light.
Mutton and mashed turnips. What is that?
A brilliant angel appeared, towering before the shepherds.
Do not be afraid. I bring you good news. It will bring great joy for all the people.
The shepherds gaped, unable to say a word. It seemed impossible that an angel would appear to lowly men like them.
Today in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is the Messiah, the Lord. Here is how you will know I am telling you the truth. You will find a baby wrapped in strips of cloth and lying in a manger.
The shepherds were just beginning to get their breath back when suddenly, it seemed like all of heaven opened up. A full angel choir appeared, filling the sky.
May glory be given to God in the highest heaven, and may peace be given to those He is pleased with on earth.
Then, just as quickly as they had appeared, the angels returned to heaven. The sky dimmed. Stars twinkled faintly once more. The shepherds stood staring at each other, their mouths hanging open.
Are you bored now, youngin'?
No.
Well, then let's do this.
We could just go to Bethlehem? Leave the sheep?
Number one, let's see this thing that's happened. Number two, especially since the Lord saw fit to tell us about it. Number three, get moving.
The shepherds hurried to Bethlehem, not stopping for rest until they saw a light glowing on the edge of town.
There.
Breathless, the shepherds knocked on the door. Boom, 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 boom. A woman opened it. She looked tired, but her face was glowing.
Ma'am, we've come to see the baby.
The baby? You know?
The angels told us.
Come right in. I want to hear the whole story.
Once inside, the shepherds were greeted with a familiar sight: sheep, chickens, hay, and something less familiar: a tiny baby, tightly wrapped in strips of cloth, lying in the animal's feeding trough.
He's so little.
Would you like to hold him?
The rough shepherds took turns holding the baby, gently as a lamb.
The Messiah, the Lord.
Right here, with us.
When the shepherds finally left, dawn was breaking over the hills. The little town of Bethlehem was waking up.
Praise God.
He sent a Savior, a Messiah.
Just a tiny baby now, but he's gonna make peace for all of us. Everywhere.
Everyone who heard what the shepherds said was amazed, and Mary kept everything that had happened in her heart to think about over and over.
There we go. It's true. Christmas is over. But if you think about it, Christmas isn't just one day. No, Christmas is only the start of something bigger. Listen. When the shepherds heard Jesus was born, the first thing they did was get moving. They had to see for themselves. And when they found out that what the angel had said was true, they got moving again. And they told everyone about the baby they'd seen and the good news they heard. And the angel said it was good news for all the people, by the way. The news was this: in a world full of sadness and pain and fighting and anger and deep breath, God sent Jesus to bring peace. And the peace Jesus brings can help us get through all the stress and confusion and pain we might see in this world. That is good news. And you know what else is good news? That means the Christmas celebration doesn't have to end after just one day. There's still a lot left to celebrate. Yeah, baby, Christmas! We've got to get moving. Like those shepherds, we got to tell everyone the good news. People need to know this one thing: God's peace is for everyone. It's not something we keep to ourselves. So, maybe there won't be lights or decorations, but we can still be nice to one another. We can still give gifts to show people we love them. We can still sing and we can still celebrate. Boom! Christmas all year! Oh man, I am feeling much better now. The holidays are over, the decorations are in the box, and I am at peace. Still have got a lot of fake snow to clean up. I'll see you around. Merry Christmas! I'm making a bigger mess for myself.